Hi everyone, welcome to this session on who's a student unicorn and how can your career roadmap be radically different if you're a student unicorn. So a very interesting way to understand any idea usually is to understand it in the framework of problem, solution, and then impact. Right? It makes a lot more sense to understand something when you can see it as, okay, what is the problem you're trying to solve? What is the solution you have? And if you implement that solution, what is that impact that you might be able to see if you implement the solution? So the problem we have is our education system, right? That Indian education, it's not just Indian, right? Globally, the education system is messed up, and the education system does not allow people to pursue free thought. Maybe that is problem number one. And problem number two is, particularly if you want to talk about the Indian society, at multiple levels, I think the self-respect of youngsters is put down, right? So that self-confidence completely goes down, and youngsters get into a survival mode. So how do we fix the socio-psychological damage that we all suffer, the damage that the society puts on all of us, and emerge as good leaders? So this to me is a problem statement that the society is damaging the psychology of youngsters. The education system is failing to inculcate thought process, and also to a large extent youngsters don't get that proper guidance in terms of what to read, what kind of exposure to get, and so on. So this, for me, are the broad problem statements to cover today. And what is the solution that I mean, for 12 years of my life, I tried looking for a solution in the school education space, only to realize that there's never a problem with those school kids. The problem is only with those adults who deal with those school kids, with those parents who, biggest villains for me are parents, putting them aside. If Indian parents change overnight, India's education system can change, right? So that put aside, I've lost my confidence that anything can happen to Indian parents. So now, can something be done at a college level? Yes and no. But what I realize is, if companies can actually, run mentoring programs, and if companies can change the thought process, that's when real change can happen. And if you think about it, organizations like McKinsey, Intel, all of them have created great learning cultures. Or if you look at O&M, Ogilvy and Mather, they are considered one of the world's best ad agency, and they're considered like a school. If someone works in O&M, people close their eyes and hire. Likewise, McKinsey as well, right? Huge brand value. Where people go and say, I'm a McKinsey alum, and so on. So can we solve this problem at a corporate level? So that is the discussion today. So now, this is where the deep thought model comes in, where companies say, hey, I want good people, but I know the education system is messed up in a million ways, so I will not get good people if I count on the education system. So can I partner with Deep Thought so that Deep Thought can run this continuous mentoring program, so that these youngsters are preserved, their talent is preserved, and the society doesn't go and, destroy them. Now, before moving more into the solution space, I would like to tell you some very interesting problems I face. Now, when we talk to companies say that they want people with innovative thinking. They want people with risk-taking appetite who can try new ideas. But and what we do is, as a company, Deep Thought has always been willing to give chances to somebody who wants to try, who wants to learn. Now, that door which we open for these people, right? That door which we open for somebody who's not good but can learn has created a lot of nuisance value for us over the years. Because a lot of people are desperate for a job, who have no originality left inside them. A large number of them from Hyderabad, the place where I come from, because we have some amazing 11th and 12th class institutions in this place, which successfully kill the childhood of students, and in 11th and 12th successfully kill whatever personality is left within the youngster, leaving that youngster fit for nothing after they go to, which is why in the IITs also, if you see, highest dropout rates are among Telugu people only. Very proud to say that as a Telugu person, that we have the highest dropouts in the IITs, because our colleges here and our parents here are one of the worst in the country, right? So Hyderabad parents are one of the worst in the country, if you think of it that way. So now, no offense to any Hyderabadis, I'm a proud SRH fan, proud Hyderabadi, but just something to do with the ecosystem here. Right. Now, what is the problem? The problem is when people are somehow getting focused only on the job, and this natural curiosity and all of these are going for a toss. Now, these are the various problems, and we see that even if I'm willing to look, I'll tell you a comedy story, okay? We were hiring for creative organics. This was in the month of September. Then our thing was, we will pay, reasonably well. We will mentor, we will, make sure the youngsters get the right guidance and all. All we're looking for is youngsters with the right mindset and with the curiosity to learn. I go to somebody in one college whom I know really well, and I say, these are my requirements. And she immediately says, no, we don't have such people. I just said, we want people with curiosity. We want people who want to do the job out of love for chemistry, not because they want a job. Immediately, the placement officer says, I don't think we have such students. Initially, the placement officer approaches me and says, Tarun, you're hiring for creative organics. Why don't you take our students? Yeah, I'm willing to. We will give them good salary also, but I want people who have the drive to learn. And then the placement officer is like, no, I don't think our people are this. This is the problem we have today. Now, I'm guessing that, you guys are not of that category. So let's not discuss the problems, but let's discuss the solution. The solution is, can we start ignoring the society? Because let's ask ourselves, what happened to Aryabhatta? Indian society said, get out. What happened to Darwin? They did not believe in theory of evolution. What happened to Galileo? Right? If you think about it, world's greatest thinkers were not taken seriously in the beginning. So if you want to go and make a change, you cannot be that blue-eyed boy or blue-eyed girl, right? I mean, let me explain that in a simple way. I mean, when I was in school, I was a kind of an Olympiad ranker and all of that. And, in the Khandan also, people are like Tarun Anna, you should study, you should get Olympiad medals and all of that. That went on for a while. But after I became an entrepreneur, gaya, right? So it's like, what I'm trying to tell you is, you're no longer that person who's living for validation by the society. In school, you could be a topper, right? In school, you could be a topper and people are like, wow, this person is so good. But then if you're trying to do something to change the society, if you're doing something to change the society, can you live for that validation? Because if you live for that validation, won't you do what the society is already accepting? Can you challenge the boundaries of what the society considers possible? Now, this is one thing, right? To put that societal expectations aside. And the second thing is, people will come back and people will keep telling you that you're not good enough. People will come back and keep telling you that you're not good enough. Now, what happens when you start buying into these narratives where people tell you that you're not good enough? Your self-esteem takes a beating, right? Now, I've seen multiple people in DeepThought where I tell them, like yesterday, one of the interns, I was talking to him and I said, why don't you try this? And what I saw in his eyes was fear. What if I fail? But in DeepThought, there are few 18, 19-year-old team leaders who are leading people who are 30 also. In DeepThought, we have such young team leaders. And what I really look for in these youngsters is that ability to just go, try something, fail, and completely be okay with failing. Now, what does it mean by completely be okay with failing? Can you bite the bullet? As in, you go fail, people will scold you. But can you be that thick-skinned rowdy who's like, okay, fine, you scold me, but I'll still go back and try the same thing. It's like Virender Sehwag, right? He gets out on 293, tries to hit a 6. I don't know, 293 or 195, one of these two innings. Tries to hit a 6 and gets out. And people go and say, Viru, kya kar liya? Why did you, play that shot? Why did you hit that 6? You got out. You missed out on a landmark score and all. And then Virender Sehwag says, thoda sa timing miss ho gayi thi. Just another, 2 feet and it would have been a 6. He's not repenting. He's not repenting that he took a risk. He's like, why didn't I hit it harder? And if you ask him, next time you're on 195, what will you do? He's like, I'll still go for a 6. And interestingly, Sachin Tendulkar, in one TV show, he says, Sachin Tendulkar apparently went to Sehwag and said, Viru, tu defense mat khel, tu out ho jayega. He said, Sehwag, you don't play defense. You'll get out if you play defense. And what was the consequence of Virender Sehwag having this attitude towards batting? Bowlers world over were terrified just to see one man called Sehwag standing there. I mean, India would get a psychological advantage if that fellow stays at the wicket for, 10 overs. So if you think about it, this psychological state that you're in is critical for innovation. You may fail, but the point is, if you're scared of failing, see, look, if you're confident and you try, you may succeed, you may fail. If you're scared and you try, you will definitely fail. If you ask me for guarantee, if you're scared, I can give you a guarantee that you will fail. Is the conundrum understood? It's a funny dilemma, right? If you're scared and you're not willing to take a risk, you'll pakka fail. But if you're willing to take a risk, you may succeed. But what happens over a period of time when you take intelligent risks? You learn from it. You become very clever about how you take risks. You become very clever about how you do things. But what happens to a person who never took the risk? What happens to a person who never took the chance? That person doesn't get an X factor. Now, I told you guys that what if you were looking at your career like an economist? An economist does not look at things for next to 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, right? An economist has a long-term thinking. Now, if you're an economist, what you would understand is great financial opportunities are linked to private information. Great financial opportunities are linked to private information. This is what Raghuram Rajan says. Let me explain what that is. If someone tells you that this company's stock is going up, go invest. What will happen? Everybody goes and buys that stock. The price goes up. It's no longer a high return stock. But if only a few people know that this company is a good company, you get a high ROI. So if you have the same knowledge that the whole world has, you're not getting a high ROI. But if you're having something new that the world doesn't have, you're ahead. And what is the only way to have something new the world doesn't have? Is when you try things, you experiment and fail. Today, when DeepThought goes and says, we'll hire really good people for you, companies are like, go try. And the reason is simple. We've been hiring for the last 7 years. And today we go and show off and say, like how a typical Indian middle-class mother can twist a bendi and tell the quality. We'll look into the eyes of a youngster and tell you, is this fellow a Chatur Ramalingam or a Baba Ranchod Das? Because you bring the person into a workshop and you see where the eyes light up and where the eyes don't light up, and you sort of know this is a person who's driven by external validation, and this is a person who's a rebel, this is a person who's an explorer. Now, how did we get here? We ran a lot of experiments. We failed multiple times. We got a lot of hires wrong. So that risk taking is a very, very important thing if you understand it from an economics perspective. Now, is India a risk? Is India a pro-risk country, or is India a risk-averse economy?
It's more of a jugaadu country.
Risk-averse, right? You try to minimize your risk. Now, if you look at California, California state,
pro-risk country.
They celebrate failure. They celebrate failure. There are VCs who keep funding a lot of new ideas, and they're like, success or failure, I don't care. I want good ideas. I want good quality ideas with good founders. So what do they know? If I bet on 100 startups, 5 to 6 startups succeed, they become big. And that's where you have a Google, you have a Tesla, you have all these amazing companies over there. Why don't you have them in India? Because the societal mindset here is not pro-risk taking. But in India as well, if you look at, entrepreneurs who made it big, they have had that appetite to take risks, right? So I will want to move into questions, but before that, 3 important points I want to leave you with, and then we'll move into questions. Point number 1 is risk taking, as I said. Are you willing to see a very big dream for yourself? That in the next 10 years, this is what I want to be, right? See that very big dream for yourself, not an ordinary dream. What is a very big dream? If people don't laugh at you, that's not a big dream. Or let me put it this way, that are you seeing a dream where 100,000 people are impacted by your work? If 100,000 people are not impacted by your work, for me, that's not a big dream at all. So 1, are you seeing a big dream, and are you having that risk taking, right? Do you care about the society, or do you tell the society, get lost? I'm way beyond you. I'm way beyond your understanding. So, I mean, when I was in college, and when somebody would say, Tarun, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing all this? I say, Krishna's Leelas, Dhoni's captaincy, and my decision making, don't try to understand, you'll only get confused. So I just give witty answers and say, अरे तुमसे नहीं हो पाएगा. They're like, तू पागल है, IIM का seat क्यों छोड़ रहा है? Why are you leaving that IIM seat? I say, you won't understand. I've got a very different economics sorted out for that. And let me also tell you guys that I went to I was audacious enough to go to my IIM interview in kurta and jeans. I went in kurta and jeans, and then my last question in my IIM interview was that, how come you showed up in, this way? And I told them that I believe in being who I am. I will not pretend to be somebody else, and life is not a one-shot game. They said, but interview is one-shot game. No, what if we reject you today? And then I said, sir, I believe you get what you deserve. And in my life, I've been getting it so far. Don't worry about that. And if I would have thought like this, I wouldn't have rejected IIT seat 5 years back. I wouldn't have gone to ICER. So I'm more interested in doing what I would like to do. And a little bit in the interview, they were like, do you have any siblings? I'm like, yeah, I have a younger sister. And they were like, you've been so unconventional all through your career. And the guy goes back onto his chair. Like, how the hell did your parents leave you to do all these things? So now a lot of people, and the guys who went into that room for IIM interview before me, they were like, oh my God, I should get cleared. Got a brand new blazer. And, I didn't even press my kurta. I didn't even shave my beard. I went like a sadhu inside the room. And I managed to clear my interview. And people before me were all terrified. Will I clear? Will I not clear? And so on. And I go in and I'm like, hi, I'm Tarun. I've been running my startup since 3 years. I was only 21 and was already having a startup for 3 years. I started at 19. And they were like, excuse me, you said you're an entrepreneur? I said, yes. Okay, what's your startup? Tell me all that. I was answering about that. And I gave them my file. My file had all the certificates. Then you know what they did? They put the file aside. When the certificate is talking, why were they interested in the certificates which are inside the file? So this is one question I ask all the student unicorns. Do you want certificates, or are you the certificate? Do you want certificates, or are you the certificate? And, all the other guys found it difficult in the interview, and I was just having fun, trying to tell them stories, trying to tell them why I love the world of business. So I'm saying, can you have that risk-taking appetite? Can you have that big dream? Because the world will respect you at some point. The mature folks at some point will see, okay, this is a very evolved individual. This person invested so much in himself or herself. This person has a clear understanding. This person has so much of clarity for that age. That is a perception which gets created. Not everyone gets it. Not everyone gets it. But the ones who are visionary will be like, wow, I want to work with this youngster. Okay, that's my point number 1. My point number 2 is, do you follow motivational speakers or do you follow thought leaders? So if you, okay, I will not take names, but, if that monk who puts all those, the person who says he was a monk and with fake accent, he puts YouTube videos, if you're following this guy, or some of these, people who put motivational talks, who I was referring to. So instead of that J, you can listen to, Jim Collins. So now, because most of the people, I ask this question, right? What books do you read, or which thought leaders do you follow? I see this name all the time, that Jay, I see him all the time. But I'm saying, instead of following motivational speakers, can you guys listen to thought leaders? I found this particularly interesting in my own career, because when I was in my pre-final year, I started reading some interesting books. I read this book called The Wave Rider. This is one of my favorite books. The Wave Rider. It was written by Ajit Balakrishnan, the founder of rediffmail.com. So lot of adventures, how his company was about to shut down, and finally how it went to the stock market, and in stock market how it did well. I was like, wow, when is my company going to go to the stock market? So I was seeing that, dream when I was reading that book. Or I was reading this book called No Money Marketing by Jessie Paul. She says that I mean, in that book she writes, I love marketing because marketing is a way for a small town girl from Kerala to go and make it big in the Indian corporate ecosystem and influence the Indian economy in a big way. She writes these lines, very emotional lines of why she loves marketing and how she does marketing and all of that. I was like, wow, I found it very, inspiring. Then I read this book, Toyota Production System by Taichi Ono, again in my 4th year of college. And he was like, these Americans were doing their business this way, but we Japanese, we did it differently. And, Americans were trying to kick us out of our own market. We went and kicked the Americans out of American market. I was like, wow, we have to go the Japanese way, right? We have to learn micromanagement. We have to, not micromanagement exactly, but to learn operational efficiency and so on. And then, so as I read more and more thought leaders, I realized, okay, the world is so imperfect in so many different ways. So we have the opportunity to organize the world. We have the opportunity to make the world better, not by listening to motivational lines, but by listening to processes, listening to methods which have worked for people. And as I read a lot of those books, I got access to many such tools in my mind, many such fundamentals in my mind. So whenever I deal with a real world problem, it's a lot of confidence that the real world goes with just normal common sense, but I'm equipped with that wisdom of these thought leaders. I'm equipped with new ways of thinking, right? So this is my second point. My first point was risk taking. Second point is listening to a lot of, thought leaders. And the third and the most important point is leadership development. Are you looking for opportunities where you can take a responsibility and handle that responsibility? When I was in my second year of college, I founded 2 clubs, launched India's first science festival, which was a disaster, but launched it. It was because every engineering college would launch a tech fest. We said, okay, Sci Fest. In fact, I said Kolkata announced it before us, but we announced it 1 month before them and said we are India's first science festival. So yeah, so those were the games. And I was leading a 100-member team as a 19-year-old in the college. That didn't go well. It was a big failure. Learned a lot, taught me character, because when you experience such a big failure very early in your career and a lot of people judge you based on that, I think that teaches you how to be careful as you go forward. And I was very happy that I failed very early in my life, right? And a very big failure, which was emotionally very taxing, that judgment stayed with me for a very, very long time. So now these are things I would say, that risk taking, reading a lot of thought leaders. And the third one is, how can you take up some leadership responsibilities and travel with some leadership responsibilities? Because what happens with most people is they get the leadership responsibility maybe only when they're 40 or 50. But by then it's too late. Your personality is already fixed by then. You've already probably become very cynical, or probably you've lost your energy and all. But as a youngster, you try that leadership responsibility. That's fantastic, right? You can make your mistakes, you can fall down, you can get up, and you can go ahead. So I think these are ways of how you can be a student unicorn, where you don't think like a fresher, you don't think like an intern, you don't wait for a senior to come and tell you what to do, but you are that person who will take a problem, run with that problem, and figure out your own solution. So these are some thoughts I wanted to share with you. And now I'm very happy to take questions, because I'm sure more than my gyan, the questions will add more value to all of you. So please feel free to unmute yourself and ask your questions.
Hi, Tarun.
Hi, Jay.
My question is, how can we decide where to take risk and what risk to take and what to not? Because this is also important. Na?
That's a very good question, Jay. I think that's where your risk management comes into picture, right? So now, how do you look at risk management? If the risk is high, you want your return to be high, right? If your risk is high, you want the return to be high. So if you're taking a very high risk, let's say you're investing in stock market, right? You're taking a very high risk. The company may fail. So you want an outsized winner. What's an outsized winner? Now, if someone is investing in a startup, okay, let me give you an example, Jay. When Mark Anderson invested in Instagram, he invested $250,000 and he got $76 million when he sold that stock. In Hera Fairy, she says 1 ka double, na? Here 1 ka 312. For every 1 rupee he spent, he earned 312 rupees. You spend 1 lakh, he gets 3.12 crore. So when you take a high risk, you want an outsized winner. Why outsized winner? Because when you take a high risk, even if one risk pulls off, you want all the other losses to get covered. So one is, if you take a high risk, you want an outsized winner. Second is, you want to diversify your risks. You don't want to put all your eggs in the same basket. You want to have a diverse portfolio. Third is, you want to have a low risk thing which covers your daily survival. And a short answer, Jay, short answer to your question, financial literacy. There's one very interesting video of Raghuram Rajan where he gives a talk to students of 11th and 12th class in Delhi Public School, Srinagar, I think. He introduces some ideas of financial literacy. If you're interested, just give me a buzz on WhatsApp. I'll share that video. Watch that video. In that, I think risk management, finance, all of these are covered very beautifully. Raghuram Rajan is one of my favorite teachers. And for me, I think he was one of the greatest rock stars India ever had. Right? Some other day, we'll have a discussion on Raghuram Rajan. Banda to dude tha. It's like when Indian economy was falling down, the guy comes and the guy makes bold moves. Somebody comes and asks, Raghuram Rajan, you're doing all this. Are you a hawk or are you a dove? He's like, I don't know if I'm a hawk or I'm a dove, but my name is Raghuram Rajan and I do what I do. He had the courage to go and tell this to the Indian media. My name is Raghuram Rajan and I do what I do. One of the most bold RBI governors we ever had. Unfortunately, Indian youth don't know about him. I think if anyone deserves to be Indian youth icon, I think it is Raghuram Rajan. So this is beautiful video of Raghuram Rajan. Do watch it. I mean, Delhi Public School, Srinagar ka financial literacy. I hope I answered your question. Diversify your portfolio, get outsized winners, and have safe things for your immediate survival.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
And if it's from your career perspective, again, have something which is safe for you. For example, you're doing data science, that's safe, your career is assured. Take some risks, that is, you might want to do music or you might want to do something which you're really passionate about. And then try doing multiple things. Eventually, you might connect that music with data science or something like that. So you can have a very diversified portfolio so you're protected. Yeah, Abhishek, please go ahead with your question.
Hello, Taram. So you have mentioned about risk-taking abilities, like in your speech. So I would like to question that, like some people face this kind of issues, like they're not that confident enough to take risks, or either they are bothered about the society, that what they'll think of them. So how to manage that kind of fear and how to develop that kind of inner confidence in you, so that you could take risk at a very early age.
So Abhishek, I'll give you 3 pointers. Pointer number 1 is you could do a lot of journaling, right? And you could do self-appreciation. Self-love is very important for any leader. So you could do a lot of journaling with self-appreciation. That could be my pointer number 1. Pointer number 2, Abhishek, is the peers group that you maintain for yourself. The kind of people you hang out with. So if you hang out with a lot of risk takers, you're likely to be a risk taker too. For example, all my close friends or most of my close friends are entrepreneurs or artists. So I like talking to those people, and ever since I was in college, I would hang out with people who trying something really interesting. Like one of my hangout spots in Hyderabad is this place called Lamakan, which is an open cultural space. Artists, entrepreneurs, and all hang out there. So I go there and I keep meeting people. So when you see people who are trying to do something big in their life, and when your chips are down, seeing them, you get pumped up and like, chalo, let's go do it, right? So I think to have a good peer group would be my second point. My first point is journaling and self-appreciation. And third point is, I think you can read a lot of good business books, because when you read how thought leaders have taken risks and how it pulled off, you'll never settle for something conventional. And let me tell you, when I do things in my life, right, if I do something conventional, I start getting very uncomfortable with it. When I do something conventional, I start getting very uncomfortable about it, because I'm like, wait, I'm not getting a good return out of this if I'm doing something conventional. Or my brand image is, the way I set my perception among my group, that's going to take a beating if they're expecting me to do something which everyone does. The way you carry yourself, the way you set that identity for yourself, all of that changes when you understand that, you want to be unique. And when does that happen? When you read a lot of thought leaders and understand their journey. The peer group, read about different thought leaders, and journaling. I think these 3 things can help you improve your risk taking. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, Harleen, please go ahead with your question.
Hello, am I audible? Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, like, what do you do when you keep taking risks and you keep failing and you keep coming up with new ideas despite that, but then the people around you, like, suppose it's my teachers and my friends, they see you differently and you feel different, and then you don't fit in because your ideas are not, their ideas, and every time you do try to do something new, you keep failing. Eventually there will come, at least for me, there has come a point where I just do the bare minimum and I try not to come up with novel ideas anymore. So what do you do when that happens? Because I mean, people who do try to go for novel things get ostracized by society a lot, and it's easy to say to never kill the rebel inside of you, but when you grow up you kind of learn to, you know what I mean.
Okay, good question. Point number one, I think I'll say the same thing which I told Abhishek. Have a good peer group. And as you said, as you grow up, it tends to die, right? So maybe interact with people who didn't grow up already. So that's something I did for 12 years of my life. So you can interact with school students. So that rebel in you never dies by seeing them, right? Having a good peer group, I think, is one, I would say. Second is to study economics. To study economics and understand how you want to, balance your portfolio. So Harleen, if you're taking a big risk somewhere and you're going to fail, can you also have something else which is going on the side where the risk is a little lower, and that gets you a little bit of, that covers your needs? See, look, when you take a risk, right, what are you losing? You might be losing, I mean, the loss can be financial, the loss can be emotional, the loss can be of different kinds. For some people, the loss may not be financial, the loss could be emotional, which is the society, or the loss could be social, the society labeling you in some form. So what if you can do something else on the side which covers up your social capital? Okay, so point number one is peer group. Point number two is diversify your portfolio. And point number three is, I think you want to be understanding narrative building. How do you do your narrative building so that people around you eventually start accepting you? So instead of telling people that, hey, you don't understand me, or this is the right thing to do, why don't you build a narrative through which people are like, wow, this is interesting? I mean, whomever I spoke to, very rarely I got a lot of confrontation, because I tell them very intelligent stories. Like, I tell them, they ask, what do you do? I say, around your house, how many BTech graduates do you have who are jobless currently? And they're like, yeah, a lot of them. I actually work on this problem because our Indian education system is a little messed up. People are not getting proper jobs and all of that. So I'm trying to change. The problem is these guys, are learning in a very bad way. Don't you realize that, our normal people from the village, they're smarter than these people? They're like, correct. These BTech students don't have any brains and all. Like, exactly. So I try to make sure that they're like Tenali Ramakrishna, Birbal and all. I try to make them intelligent. This is what I do. It's going to take us some time, but eventually it's going to be massive. Like, but if you would have gone into a job, you would have made a lot of money. Like, oh, do you know that, then I tell them, do you know that many of these entrepreneurs whose companies get very big, they become billionaires? Then I run them through some economics. I tell them what, how Indian entrepreneurs made it big. And I'm like, I may lose it, but currently people have invested more than 1 crore in me, and the company is worth around 20 crores. So if this company shuts down, I'm going to be the biggest guy losing it because my stock is in the company. So I better make sure this company goes to the next stage. And if someone buys out this company, that's a lot of money too. They're like, oh, this is interesting. So it's all about how you build that narrative, how you explain things. So I don't tell them, I think one simple advice there, Harleen, is stop taking the Mother Teresa positioning. Stop taking that sacrificial lamb wala positioning, that I'm sacrificing myself so that the society can be better. So rather, if you can have that economic vision running through, people are like, wow, this is nice. So I hope I answered your question. Narrative building, peer group, economics.
Yep. Thank you, Tarun.
Yeah, Ishan, go ahead.
Tarun, I wanted to ask you about the leadership thing. Hello, am I audible?
You're audible, Ishan. Please go ahead.
So, when there is a situation, as you said about the leadership, like 18, 19 old year people are leading 30, 35 plus age group. Sometimes like even there they might face the thing like we have so much of experience and like the conventional ways they what they tell. So I wanted to discuss like how exactly they operate so these uh, older age people listen to these guys. And other question is like whom should we listen like you said about the like thought leaders and motivational speakers. Like how can we differentiate? And every single guy out there is speaking something like giving the gyan. So uh, like किसका ज्ञान लेना चाहिए और किसका ज्ञान नहीं लेना चाहिए exactly like
Two really good questions. I'll take your second question first. So Ishan, one is when I choose to read someone, right, Ishan, I look at the academic credentials of the person, how many research papers the person has published and all of that. So that's one thing I look at. Or I look at has this person created some kind of economic impact? Did this person's company create massive impact or something like that? These are two things I look at. Because if that person has created massive economic impact, I'm interested in understanding how that person thinks and how that person is operating, right? Because the person was able to set up a successful business or help successful businesses. Or if I'm reading someone who's got good academic credentials, I know this is a person who's backing all the claims with research, who's giving in-depth explanation for things and so on. Now, what if the person doesn't have academic credentials, and what if that person is still not that big in terms of business impact? That's still fine. That's where, Ishan, I try to see, has this person given me a new understanding of things? Am I just feeling good at the end of it? Or have I got an in-depth understanding? Now, how do you test that? Write a reflection. Try to write pointers of what are the new concepts you learned from it. What are the new arguments? What are the new examples you've learned around something? So if I'm not able to count something new I've learned, I know I've got nothing out of it. Does that make sense? Now, that is your
yes.
second question. So I'd probably reflect what all are my takeaways at the end of it, right? And how fundamental are these principles? Do these apply only in one situation, or does this apply in a variety of situations? Is something I would look at. Now, coming to your first question, as far as experience and egos are concerned. See, Ishan, end of the day, right? Be it a person with 20 years experience, or be it an intern, be it a fresher, anyone, they're all humans. If you can make that human to human connect, right, I think things fall in place wonderfully. Now, those humans who sort of show ego, or those humans who have problems with you, the challenge usually is that there is some unmet emotional need there. Let's say there's a person who's saying, do you know who I am? You see that as superiority complex, right? You know what is the root cause of superiority complex? Any psychology students here? What is the root cause of superiority complex?
The validation.
Insecurity.
Exactly. Self-esteem issues and insecurity. Now, let's say, okay, Ishan, I'll tell you an interesting story, right? I told you that when DeepThought selection process is opened up to a lot of people, we deal with a lot of nuisance. Quite a few times, what happens is people take that long selection process. At the end, they get rejected. And I go talk to them sometimes because I want to understand what people feel like. They start bad-mouthing me. They start scolding. They start using very foul language sometimes. I'm very happy to show some screenshots to you, those who are interested. Then I don't block, I talk. So I reply and say, hey, I understand why you are feeling so. And I know you're feeling bad about this, but this was the intention. And you don't want to be behaving this way because this is going to hurt you in the long run. Because in any good company, there's something called a HR round, and the HR round, the HR is professionally trained to make up your psychology. If you're getting angry for small things like this, they'll find out. I'm sure you're a talented youngster, and I'm sure you'll get somewhere soon. So please don't do this to yourself. If you don't like me, that's okay. You can hate me, that's perfectly all right, but don't do this to yourself. They're like, don't try giving me all these lectures. And again, they scold, with 2-3 more guys. I'm like, okay, that's fine. You feel this way right now. But please think with a cool mind. Don't do this. There's one guy who I was chatting with on a Sunday evening. My parents were not at home. I was alone at home and I didn't have anything meaningful to do. So I thought, okay, fine, let's go talk with this guy. Seems to be very disturbed. I speak to him for about 20 minutes. And after that, he says, sir, I feel very comfortable talking to you. Is it okay if I talk to you regularly? I'm like, sorry, boss, I'm a CEO of a company and I have a lot of things to do. So talking to you regularly could be problematic, but yes, I do some workshops and you could just drop in when you want to. You get how things turned around, right? So for me, it's not about influencing people or manipulating people or something. In general, people behave due to certain circumstances and certain reasons. When you can show that compassion, you can eventually win people. So I think there's an art of working together with people. So even if you're young and the people who are way senior to you, I'm sure you can do a great job as a leader. It's all, your compassion and how you downplay yourself. See, if you're a leader who's full of yourself, right? But if you're a leader who tells yourself, you are not important, you are not important, I'm sure you can carry a lot of people together. I can tell this out of personal experience. I started my career at 19 and a lot of people in their 60s supported me. Right? But there it's important for you to say, I am not important. The cause is important. People are important. If that can be established, people really get attracted to you. People really are like, I want to associate with this person. I want to be with this person. From the heart, it comes out. So Ishan, all I'm saying is do Gandhigiri.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Deepak, what do you?
My question is related to stock market only. Like most of the people in India would be thinking that the stock market is gambling, and most of the parents, when we invest as a youngster, we were eager to invest in stock market by looking at many investors like Warren Buffett and many YouTubers, like they used to do stock market, and we get motivated to invest there because we know the proper techniques. But even though our parents are not convinced that we shouldn't invest that because it's gambling, like societal mindset would like to put pressure that तेरा बेटा है so ये gambling कर रहा, ये stock market का है. So how we could make understand our parents about like it is a if we do in a good process, then we could do in a much better way.
So Deepak, I think an answer is within your question itself. The problem is when it is gambling. There's no problem when it is not gambling. The problem with stock market is it soon becomes very addictive. So I think if you're able to demonstrate that you're always going to trade with a very low amount of money and you're not worried about the return in the first 2 years of your trading career, if you just put a little money and tell yourself, I'm not going to put 1 rupee more than this, and it's okay if I lose all my money. It's okay if I lose all my money, but I'm not going to put 1 rupee more than this small amount. Then I think you're doing fine. The problem is when it becomes addictive. The problem is when you say, hey, there's an opportunity, I want to put all my money, and then gone. And in that video, right, Raghuram Rajan tells he's never confident of stock market trading. He's one of the best economists in the world. So stock market trading is something which only few people can do really well. So if you feel just because you're intelligent or because you're educated, you can do well at stock market, then you're probably mistaken. So it's very important to be clever about the risks you take. So before you go and get other people into confidence, I think it's important for you to realize that you want to start something very, very small, not do something big. The stock market trading has definitely ruined a lot of people's lives. So when the society has a perception about stock market trading, I think the society has a valid reason to have that perception. Because a lot of people have ruined their lives with that. It can soon become gambling. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes.
So have a very small amount of money, invest that small amount of money. Say that you're not doing stock market trading. Say that you're just doing your research. You're trying to understand the economy. That's it. You're not doing trading and you don't have money to do trading. You say, I don't have that much money to do trading. I'm just doing a little research of what will happen in stocks. And maybe initially what you could do is there are simulations which are available on the internet with virtual money. You can have a stock market experience. So you could start off with those simulations. Yeah, does that answer your question? Okay.
Yes.
What do you touch?
So we can develop the trading psychology so it can help us. And for the beginners, we can also do like paper trading for building up our skills in discipline. Like I've done myself trading enough, so I can tell this on my end.
But again, I would caution you guys that it's very addictive and being careful is super important.
Yeah, yes.
Gambling is very addictive, and that's why society has perceptions with gambling, and it's not surprising that mythological tales also have something to say about gambling, because the human society for a very long time has been concerned about this problem. Yeah, Hinglaj.
There will be a downfall when you take a risk, and whenever do a thing or a business or anything, there sometimes it will be a downfall, sometimes it will be a rise. Then how to cope up with that demotivated situation? To rise again.
Yeah. So Hinglaj, I think if you're building a innovation career for yourself, right? When you try 100 things, probably 80 of those are going to fail or 90 of those are going to fail and only 10 are going to click. So there the idea is simple. You again, I would say diversified portfolio and taking intelligent risks. So when we try something innovative, right? We don't put too much of budget at once. We put less amount of resources. We see if it's working or not. And then we dedicate more resources. So it's like you fire your bullets first and then your cannons. So when you're trying new ideas, the secret is in doing low cost experiments. Spend a little time, do something small, see if it works or doesn't work, and then put more effort into it. And if you're interested in studying this, you can read this book called Lean Startup by Eric Ries, and that's what this philosophy is about. How do you go lean? Do something small, see if it's working or not working, then put something big, put more resources on it. I think this is a great way to manage your risks very intelligently. And one other important thing, English is, see, one of the student unicorns in DeepThought, one problem I see with her is she tries 30 things. She succeeds in 10 things, she fails in 20 things. And her psychology is always focused on the 20 things she's failed in. She doesn't celebrate the 10 things she succeeded in. As a result, what is happening is she's not able to go forward. She's not happy in her life. She's frustrated and she's making everyone around her frustrated. She's not knowing how to enjoy the little joys of life. Saying, I want to prove myself, I don't have time. I tell one important thing to youngsters, don't ever try to prove yourself. One short way of ruining your life is to prove yourself. Because when you're trying to prove yourself, right, you kill your self-esteem, you lose your originality, all of that, you just go mad behind it. Rather, try to contribute, try to be useful to someone, try to help someone, try to create that value. In that process, you'll definitely become something valuable. So instead of, English, two things. One is psychological, which is, you tell yourself that this is an experiment and you journal what learnings you got of it. And on a financial note, I would say put less resources on that experiment initially. And once you know that experiment is giving you returns, that's when you put more resources on it. And how do you learn to do this? I would say read this book, Eric Ries, Lean Startup, and you'll learn. Or there's also a 45-minute video of Eric Ries where he explains how to use the Lean method. And there's a workshop also. Lean methodology, there's a workshop on Sensation Media YouTube channel. You can watch that. So there the Lean methodology starts. So once you learn the Lean methodology, you'll know how to make these intelligent risks. Yeah. Over to you, Ananya.
Yeah, my question was, why is it necessary to be a leader?
Okay. Very good question. So let me first give an answer from the point of view of the economy, then I'll give you an answer from an individual, right? From an economy point of view, the world doesn't have enough leaders. Now, when the world doesn't have enough leaders, what is happening? A lot of good projects don't take off. Let's say in some place in your city, there are a lot of children who deserve good education and they're not getting good education just because there's nobody to lead that project. A noble project is getting stopped because there's no leader to lead it. So the world doesn't have enough leaders. And to make things worse, the world has a lot of greedy, toxic leaders. Now, what happens when the world has greedy, toxic leaders? They hurt the mental health of employees. Those employees go and hurt the mental health of their kids. So overall in the society, that venom and the toxicity is spreading. The greatest gift to any society is a nice leader who knows how to treat people well. Then you don't need any heaven. That heaven will be on earth itself. So I think why be a leader? I think if you want to see people around you being happy, and if you want a few people to eat their 3 meals of the day and be thankful to you for eating those 3 meals of the day, I think you want to be a leader. Because as a leader, when you keep creating value, you create a lot of jobs, and as you create more jobs, you put the food on the plate of many people. It's very satisfying to be a leader. And you know what happens, Ananya? I mean, I don't know if you guys experienced it. Sometimes a glass of water feels so good. Sometimes just, normal rice and dal feels so good. As a leader, when you work, right? You work with so many people and you get tired at the end of the day and you just drink that glass of water. It's like, feels good from the inside. So when you do great work, it just feels good. You've impacted. So, I mean, see, you could do a great work as a graphic designer. You could do great work as a software developer or whatever. But there's a very different kick when you're a leader because you're touching human lives. If you can touch the heart and thought of people, it's a very fulfilling experience. Does that give you a reason to start your leadership journey today?
I also have a follow-up question, like,
Sure.
how can one become a good leader?
Okay. Good question. So, one is, how can one learn to swim? By jumping into the swimming pool. So, how can you become a good leader? So, point number one is, as I said, take a responsibility, right? Take a project or something, take a responsibility and ask what are the objectives for this project? What are we trying to achieve through this project? And figure out how you can make those objectives be met. Right? And second, again, there are a lot of thought leaders who come up with concepts of leadership like Jim Collins, level 5 leadership, and so on. So if you can read these thought leaders' books on leadership, I think that exposes you to some very important, perspectives on leadership. So to try different projects as a leader. Second is to, read different thought leaders. And third, I would say, is to understand humans, understand emotions in a very deeper way, because if you're a leader, you're going to deal with a lot of people, and people are very sensitive. People are all very different. So knowing how to handle people, I think, becomes very important and interesting. You see, all my answers somewhere down the line go back to, okay, read thought leaders. So you'll have to leave those motivational speakers aside. I mean, if you want an easier start is on LinkedIn. You can follow some good leaders who talk about leadership, who talk about people management. They share great perspectives on a daily basis. So that daily dose on LinkedIn is, I think, fantastic. Like, I follow some HR leaders and I think they come up with wonderful ideas around people, around talent, around how to nurture people, how to give a good, nice environment to people. And I find it very refreshing to read that daily. Yeah, Rishabh.
Hi Tarun, good evening. Good evening, everyone. So this is my first day and I'm very excited. I had a question, like since the inception of the whole interviewing procedure for the internship, there has been the word growth mindset that's been hit on every round. So I want to actually understand your answer to what growth mindset is, and how can we improve on the mindset?
Okay. So if I give you a task that you don't know how to do, there are two kinds of people. One kind which says, I don't know. The second kind which is like, let me go figure it out. So the people with fixed mindset are the ones who believe that if I'm this way, I'll be this way only. The ones with growth mindset are the ones who believe I can expand from here. This, in a very simplified way, is what is growth mindset. And this is heavily inspired by Carol Dweck. Even Microsoft, Satya Nadella is a huge fan of Carol Dweck, and he's implemented growth mindset as a methodology for hiring, a methodology for nurturing people at Microsoft. But in a nutshell, it's like, do I believe that I am who I am, or do I believe that I can expand from where I am? That is growth mindset to me. Yeah.
Got you, Tarun. Thank you.
Over to you, Vamsi.
Yeah, Tarun, could you tell me, as you mentioned earlier, Raghuram Rajan was one of the finest economists. And could you tell me other thought leaders that we can read about, and also the books that we can start with?
Great. So, Vamsi, one book which I recommend to most youngsters is this book called Winning by Jack Welch. So Jack Welch was a CEO of GE for more than 20 years. So at DeepThought, we have this LDI, right? Leadership Development Initiative, every Wednesday. I shamelessly copied that from Jack Welch. So he called it LDI. Yeah. So one thing about being an innovator is to, shamelessly copy a lot of ideas and implement them your own style and contextualize them in your environment. So yeah, so Winning by Jack Welch is a fantastic book. Then I have a book list of around 50 books. I'll share that on the WhatsApp group, but let me think of some names right now.
I mean, especially for the people who want to start reading the books or in the beginning stage of the reading the books.
So Jack Welch Winning is a great book which expands your mind. And if you want to enjoy reading, I think there's this book called Games Indians Play by V. Raghunathan. It's Indian psychology explained through game theory. It's a very nice book. It starts with Veerappan Wala story. No more introductions because that will be a spoiler. And Raymond Smullyan has written a lot of interesting puzzle books through which you can get exposed to logic. Although they were written for children, I'm sure they're relevant to people of all ages. Then 1 minute, I have my bookshelf here. Seth Godin has written a lot of interesting books. I think Tribes We Need You, or you can read any of the books of Seth Godin. So Seth Godin is somebody who brings that rebel thought process into you. Then Michael Shermer has written Mind of the Market, very interesting book which again explains psychology and economics. Then Freakonomics is an amazing book. I think if you want to fall in love with reading, Freakonomics, Stephen Levitt, right? In a very funny way, he tries to make economics accessible to you. Eliyahu Goldratt has written this novel called Goal 1, Goal 2. Through a novel, he explains you operations management. So yeah, I think these are and 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, if you've not read already, is an amazing book which debunks some myths that we might have. Then Daniel Goleman, Emotional Intelligence, is a very interesting book. Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow by Daniel Kahneman will smash a lot of myths that you might have around thinking. That's a psychology oriented book. Then, one book I really love is I Too Had a Dream, Varghese Kurian. I Too Had a Dream. Okay, if you guys do not know Varghese Kurian, the milkman of India, right? The one who started Amul. So this book celebrates that story of Amul and how that entire struggle of Amul is written so beautifully. I just love this book. I Too Had a Dream.
And also related to the financial education and also education on the investment side also. Books.
I've not read too many. I've not read too many books around that, but I would encourage you to follow, I think, some of the online lectures of Professor Ashwath Damodaran. He's considered world authority of valuations. He's written a book called Numbers and Narratives. It's a beautiful book. He's an amazing teacher, Ashwath Damodaran. His book Numbers and Narratives, I think I would say is a must read.
There is also Ray Dalio's book called Principle. He is actually my inspiration in economics. He is a very great leader.
Okay. So Madhva, I hope that's a good list to start with.
Yeah. I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Or is that the book? Then someone is suggesting that.
You can also start with Psychology of Money. It's like you will get a brief knowledge
Guys,
about
I'm recording this meet for a purpose. I would like to cap this duration. So we'll take one last question. Yeah, Rahul, go ahead.
The failure. So whenever we get a failure in our life, so how we usually get tense or depressed. So how we can tackle this situation as you face this situation at very young age, at 19 years, and who are the peoples with you to help you in that situation?
Okay, thank you for the question, Rahul. Yeah, Tushar, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I would like to ask that what is the biggest risk you have taken in your life, and where you fail or succeed?
Yeah, Ishan, go ahead with your question. I'll take all three at once.
I wanted to ask about you said about following our dreams to side by side and doing the side hustle thing, but it's more about the time management skills. Like if a guy is doing the job for the survival, like of course they do. So how would in the end of the day, even if he tries to do it, he lacks the motivation. He's all tired and stuff. If he, that's all hustle is about. You have to do it, and the things. I myself do music, but I don't get enough time to do it. So I wanted to ask about that, how to handle it or manage it properly to.
Okay, so let me go backwards. How to manage time. So Ishan, I think principles of management come in. Make your plans, budget all your plans with time, make a schedule, budget them with time. And when you make a plan, planning is a waste of time if you don't review the plans. Do you understand what I'm saying? You made a plan and you said this is what you want to be doing. Then after you do the task after 1 week, you want to go back and review your plans. According to your plan, you had to achieve this. Did you really achieve it or not? Planning is a waste of time if you do not review. Planning is a waste of time if you do not write specific numbers of what you have to be achieving. So that way, I think you can do your time management, right? In your plan, specify in numbers how much time you're going to spend and by when you're going to complete it and review it properly. And if you're tired, what does it mean? You have not accounted the amount of energy you have. So if you can manage your energy and do your planning in a sustainable way, over a period of time, you will find out solutions to your problem. I think a lot of times people miss out on this because they don't review. They may plan, but they don't review. That's where the problem is. So learning the art of management, planning and reviewing, I think is super critical for this. And these days, there are a lot of softwares, a lot of SaaS tools to help you do this as well. So you could use one of them. Okay. Now moving to the previous question. This question was, I think, of Tushar, where his question is, what is the biggest risk you took in your life? I think if all this while I was working on my startup, if I probably did a job, I would have made like 2 to 3 crores right now. So I've made almost nothing. And all of that is in the form of stock in this company. Has it succeeded? Has it failed? Maybe in another 2 years, I'll be in a position to tell you that. So yeah. So I bet about 10 years of my career, that to 10 years of my youth on this idea. So that's a risk I've taken. I hope that qualifies to be a big risk. Yeah. Now, going back.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah. And going back to the last question, which is of Rahul. How do you handle failure? So Rahul, I have a very, very simple answer to this. The answer is simple, but the point is, are you in a position to implement it? The answer is, Rahul, don't celebrate your results, celebrate your efforts. Don't celebrate your results, celebrate your efforts. When someone says, I got this rank and they celebrate, ignore them. And LinkedIn pay, if someone is, I got this job and all those posts, click the 3 dots and say, stop showing me posts like this. Teach LinkedIn not to show you job updates. If I open my LinkedIn feed, you won't see a single job update on LinkedIn. You know why? I taught my LinkedIn, don't show me job updates. Don't show me congratulations posts. Show me stories. I mean, show me perspectives. Show me thoughts. Show me how people are approaching problems. So stop looking at celebrations of results, because that will make you jealous. That will make you feel insecure. That will kill your self-esteem and all. So stop looking at that. So instead of celebrating results, celebrate your efforts. And don't measure your efforts, measure your results. Celebrate your efforts and measure your results. So you failed, fantastic. You failed. That's a very good stepping stone. Now ask, how much did I do? I did 10. I was supposed to do 40. Then you ask, okay, from that 10, how do I go till a 25? That's okay. I need not go to 40. How do I go to a 25 in 1 week or in 3 days? Make that plan. Okay, I couldn't go to 25. I could go to 20. Fantastic. From 10, I went to 20. I celebrate my effort. Then I measure my result. Okay, I'm at 20. How do I go till 35? Okay, I was able to go till 32. Then I ask, okay, from 32, how do I go to 55? Okay, I went to 45. So that way, you make your plans, put a benchmark, review yourself, put a new benchmark, keep going ahead. That's how you work out in a gym, right? You target doing 10 reps. You might do 8 reps. Then you target 20 reps. You might do 12 reps. Then you target 30 reps. You might do 22 reps. Then that way, slowly you increase your reps, right? And what does your gym trainer tell you? You need that form. Once you have that form, your muscles get used to that. Then you have that ability to take much bigger load. So that way, as you get into that form, you start mastering things. But to get to that form, you might take time. So the mantra is simple. The mantra is celebrate your efforts, measure your results, put, smaller goals, keep going forward. Go for the low-hanging fruits first. That's a very simple way to, then you're no longer looking at failure. You're looking at it as progress. You're looking at it as a journey. When you're destination focused, Rahul, tab jaake success failure hoga. When you're journey focused, somebody asked, no, what is the biggest risk you took? My answer is 10 years I'm doing a startup. What if the startup fails? For me, that's not a full stop. No. I'm carrying a lot of experiences with me. I'm carrying a network with me. That network will be with me for anything else which I want to do. Making sense? The moment you look at it as one full stop, it's a success or a failure. But the moment you look at it as a journey, that's not a full stop. You keep going. You're adding value. You're, developing yourself and you're going forward. So instead of looking at it as success and failure, look at it as progress. How do I make progress? And what if I couldn't make that progress fast enough? That's okay. Every flower takes its own time to blossom. Set your plans and go ahead. Right? So thank you everyone for joining in. This is what I wanted to share with you guys. And let me also share one thing that you guys used to do that video reflection, right? Before getting into deep thought. So this video will now replace that video. Because the old video is confusing people that are a school education and all, why are people talking? So now we are contextualizing it more towards who a student unicorn is. Thanks a lot for being a part of a video which will probably play another 2,000, 3,000 times for the next 1 year.